What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Joe with Meteoric Serpents coming back at you for the Colubrid Corruption Podcast, Episode 3. Guys, today we have on a very awesome guest, Alvaro from Clover's Reptiles. We're going to be talking about hognoses today. That's his specialty. So today is going to be very cool, bringing on new species to talk about. Couple things before we get started. Obviously, if you're here in the chat today, I appreciate you. Make sure you like the stream. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel. Helps me out. Drop a comment if you're on the replay gang. And if you're on the replay gang, make sure you're hitting that like and subscribe anyway. Other than that, just wanted to go over a couple things. I have Meteoric Serpents t-shirts. I'm not wearing one right now. But if you are interested in that, feel free to send me a message and we can work something out. I can get one out to you. So that's cool. Other than that, I have a few animals available on Morph Market, Colubrid wise. If anyone in here is looking for some cool Texas rat snakes, I have some scaleless leucistic het for anery, and I have a few ball pythons posted on there. So if you want to go check that out, all my social media and my Morph Market is in the description of the video. And then I did want to do a quick plug, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit in the episode. Something I've talked about with a couple of the last two guests, is about varying up the diet. So I was able to get in touch with someone who is local to me that sells quail. And I am very excited to report, even though most of the Texas rats and most of the rat snakes are in brumation right now, the Thai bamboo rat snakes, or OP coxi, however you want to refer to them as, they do not go down into brumation. So I actually tried a day-old quail on my larger female. She took it down right away. Really awesome. If anyone in here is potentially interested in some quail, Blake's Exotic Feeders, and his main account is Blake's Exotic Animal Ranch. Very cool dude. I met him this weekend. If you want to try out some frozen thawed quail shipped to you, send him a DM and let him know I sent you. All right. So let's see who's in the chat today. Big Dog Villarino. What up, my man? Thanks for tuning in. Ryan, Morph Valley Reptiles. Thanks for being here. Eric's Morph Factory. Whole bunch of V Unit fam. What's up, guys? Bosa Reptiles, Sultan of Support. Thanks for being here. Morph Master J. Johnny. What's up, man? Thanks for being here. Heath and Hatchery. Brian, thanks for hanging out. Was repping your shirt last night. My dog, Wiz Constrictors Malacio. Thanks for tuning in, my man. Don D. What's up, dude? How you doing? Dustin, thanks for tuning in. Haven't seen your name before. I saw the subscribe notification, so appreciate you. Thanks for being here. And let's see. All right. That is about it there. So let's bring our guest out and let's get right to it, guys. Oh, hold on. Oh, wrong view. There we go. All right.
There we go.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good. Like I said, I was telling you behind stage, just finishing up the Thanksgiving, vacay, basically time off with the kids, and just getting my mind ready for the grind of the week, and getting back to the schools and everything else after school, and back to, the hognose stuff, the reptile stuff never stops. So
yeah. It was definitely a nice.
Else on top.
Yeah, it was a nice 4-day weekend off, though. It felt long to me, at least.
Sure.
But yeah. So once again, guys, if you didn't hear, this is wrong hand. This is Alvaro from Clover's Reptiles. Thank you so much for being here. And like I said, we're talking about hognoses tonight. Like we said, that is Alvaro's specialty. And man, I just want to say before we even get started, you are absolutely killing it. I give you props every chance I get, like whether you're listening or not. What you've done in your first breeding season and just being new to reptiles in general, is just incredible in my opinion. I feel like most people aren't able to do what you were able to do on the scale you did it at. So straight up props for that.
Much appreciated, man.
Yeah,
It does, help when people are noticing and are supporting. Um, you
yeah,
know, you're shouting out a lot of the unit family, some of the trap family here.
yeah,
Dustin, he's one of Hognose, a breeder as well.
awesome.
There was their first year, so like, just the support that I've received in this last year and with my first breeding season has been tremendous. And I want to thank everybody that's tuning in and has shown us support.
Oh yeah. One thing I wanted to mention before I forget, guys, anyone in the chat, if you have any questions, drop them in there. I'll try to get it up on the screen so we could ask Alvaro somewhere in the conversation. But yeah, if you got anything, just drop it in there. All right, so I wanted to get in first. People who don't really know you too well, can you give us a background about Clover's Reptiles, how you got into reptiles in the first place? Also, just where you're at in the country. Obviously, I know where you're at, but where you're at in the country, and how long you've been actually keeping. Just give us that background if you can.
Yeah, like many of us, I had a animal love from since a young child and stuff like that. In high school, I bought myself turtles and iguanas. I'm from Jersey originally, so I was living up there, and I had some iguanas and turtles. And then I was in the Marine Corps, so once I left the Marine Corps, I gave them away to my friends that also had turtles and iguanas and stuff like that. And then never really looked back at reptiles. It was out
Yeah.
of my mind for a while, for many many years, until it was about maybe 3 years ago now.
Okay.
My daughters started asking me for a pet snake. The whole family, we have other pets like dogs, cats now, and stuff like that.
Right.
We're a animal loving family, so we go to we do animal based activities and stuff like that. But they never asked me for a reptile as a pet. And I put it off for a while, and it's just because I was just thinking about like the extra responsibility that's going to fall upon me
Right.
as a pet for young children and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think for maybe about a year they asked and asked, and then finally I was like, okay, let's get one.
Okay.
Went to our local reptile shop, and it was they either wanted hognose or a corn snake.
Okay.
Uh, I like the hognose better, so I steered them more towards the hognose. Bought one
Gotcha.
hognose, then like that fire relit inside of me. I started
Yeah.
researching them, watching morph videos, found Morph Market, and then from there, a few months later, we bought a breeding pair. Well, a pair to be able to breed. They were
Right.
hatchlings then, and then just kept on adding to it. And now what is it? This is our second year keeping. 3 years started, they started asking me. So it's our second year
Okay.
keeping the hognose, and our first year breeding.
Yeah. And what got them wanting to get a snake? Let me, if I could guess, were they watching Brian Barczyk or Snake Discovery or both?
Snake Discovery.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, Especially being girls. Um,
Yeah.
Emily,
Emily is a huge inspiration, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Emily got them hooked, and I thanked her and stuff like that because um, it the hognose and the reptile world has changed my life in the last 2 years for the
Yup.
better. So without them bring that up, and without Snake Discovery, plant that seed in their head, I wouldn't be right here today talking to you.
Right. Right. And yeah, I mean, Snake Discovery, and then like I mentioned, Brian Barczyk, prayers up to him. But like those two YouTubers and those two people are like just super influential on the community, showing what it's like and like just that anyone could take care of and breed these reptiles if they really wanted to, um,
Hmm.
with the proper care, of course. So I think it gives a lot of hope and that good perspective and brings a lot of people in. And even you look in the comments of those videos, people who don't even like snakes watch those videos just because they're interested. So
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so that's awesome. So you got into it. Was it the first one that I heard you say the first snake was named Clover, and that's where the name
Yep.
came from? Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. He was named
gotcha.
Clover. He was sold to us as a normal, man. I bought him from the
Okay.
reptile shop for 75 bucks.
Yep.
And even now you go on Morph Market, a normal is 150 bucks. So I
Yeah.
bought him for 75 bucks from one of the reptile shops here in Miami. And then once I started learning more, I was like, oh, at least he's a conda, so he has a pattern reduction gene.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I already got a gene on top of that. And this year, when I bred him to a albino females. He proved out albino as well.
Nice.
So
Okay.
it was pretty cool to have
Yeah.
to buy that animal and then proving him out to have some extra genes and stuff.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. I actually had a similar experience, and I wrote about it. I had mentioned it on here. My last guest last week, Billy Hunt, he had asked me to write an article about my experience with Texas rat snakes for his herpetoculture magazine. And I had a similar experience when I was 10 years old. We went into the pet shop and bought our $35 Texas rat snake. Oh, super cool. Lo and behold, we breed it. We don't find out until 2019 when we bred it to a scaleless animal that she proved out het scaleless. So who would have thought a 2010 animal was carrying that gene all this time? So it's always cool to get those fun little bonuses, and you never know what might come out of a cheap pet store animal.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, man.
Yeah.
So, you know, we got into it, and from snake discovery too. My daughters wanted to breed. I have now 13 and 7-year old, and
Okay.
my oldest, since she's been like 5 or 6 years old, she wants to be a vet. And then, so they asked after we got the first one, they're like, "What if we breed snakes?" I go, "I'm down. Let's
Yeah.
do it. Let's convince mom and see she'll be okay." And it took me a while to convince her, like with her just wrapping her head around breeding snakes and stuff like that. But then she's like,
Right.
"Okay, cool." You know.
Yep.
So that's when we bought a few months later. We bought a pair that was had an extra additional morphs and stuff like that would be worthwhile breeding.
Awesome. Yeah. Um, and then getting into it, like, was there anyone to kind of help guide you? Because obviously you guys were, you were brand new into the species of hognose. So obviously, yeah, research goes a long way, but something that I noticed that always helps people out is like kind of like a mentorship. So was there anyone like that for you that helped
Yeah,
you and you know laid that foundation for you?
yeah, man. So the person I bought my second pair, his name's Aslan Exotic Fire Hogs, and
Yeah.
he's right up the road here too. He's in Pembroke, Plantation actually. He's in
Okay.
Plantation. I just hit him up for some hognose, and stopped by his place, picked out a pair. Actually, at that time they were yearling already, and there were some of his holdbacks. And he's like, they have these extra set of pair. If you're interested, I'll let them go. So I stopped by, picked up the pair, asked him a
Okay.
few questions, and then went on my way. And from there, just started asking more questions. And then I was like, once I really after I got that pair, I really, really dove deep into like morph market, the market in general of reptiles and hognose. And I noticed that the hognose were very popular.
Yeah.
Um, so at that point, I was like, well, if we're purchasing, you know, expensive animals, because hognose are not cheap. I'll tell you that now. Like
Yeah.
you're not gonna find my $75 hognose is very rare to find. You're not gonna find a $50 hognose and stuff like that. So when I bought that pair, I spent some money on them, and then I go, well, what if we do this and breed a couple more and sell them, right? What I was gonna do with
Right.
10 plus hatchlings that if I decided to breed one pair. So then we bought more and more. But then once I bought that from Aslan and created a relationship with him, not just a friendship at that moment, but like just started asking him questions, and then I offered my services. I was like, "Yo, I'm interested in learning more. I really want to breed, and do you need help with your, with cleaning and stuff like that?" He goes, "Actually, yeah, I do, man." At that point, it's funny how life works because we're really good friends now. It's one of those people that you meet and you probably, it feels like you've been friends for 10 plus years.
Yep.
At that moment, me and him both were working corporate jobs and stuff like that. He was doing the hog nose on the side for like I think 6 years at that point or something like that,
Okay.
6 or 7 years. Um, and so he was doing the hog nose stuff after work on the weekends. So he definitely needed a hand, and he has
Yep.
a very decent sized operation with the hog nose. So basically he said, "Yeah, man, if you're willing to drive up here and help out, I'll do it." Sometimes either at least once time during the week and like Saturdays. Usually it was one time during the week and then on Saturday I'll go up there for like a year straight. Just go clean and basically that's
Right.
it. Clean bins and hold snakes. And at that moment, ask all the questions that came to my mind. Like, what is this morph? What do you categorize this? What's the breeding process? And
Yep.
then within that year, I got to see the whole process of, beginning, I say brumation to breeding to
Yep.
hatching and setting up babies and all that stuff. So that definitely skyrocketed me with the experience that I would have had tried to figure out on my own.
Yeah, and I think what you did is something that's, like, super underrated for I'd say adults because, when you're an adult, you feel that, like, labor you have to put in has to be paid, but, like, I've heard even people say with, like, careers or fields you're interested in, of course, this can be a career, but, like, offering your services and really learning everything you can, working for free, you're still getting paid in knowledge. I mean, that's how I got started seeing things a lot more. I had a similar thing. I was I was in 7th or 8th grade volunteering at the pet store I later worked at for confirmation community service hours. And it was like, I just really wanted to work with these animals, so I went in one day because I was, like, a regular there, always buying fish and food for my snakes, and I was like, um, "Can I volunteer?" Whatever, so that's where I learned everything, and that's where all my foundation came from, all my knowledge, so, and I did that when I was, like, 13 maybe, and then I started working there when I was, like, 14, so yeah, I think that's a super important message for someone looking to get into it, like, learn and, like, genuinely be open to, um, even doing that, like, doing work, doing labor for free because it's not really for free because 'cause you're learning, you're getting paid in knowledge.
100%, man. And you know what? That's something that's at that moment, I'm a worker. I don't have,
Yeah,
I don't care about getting my hands dirty and stuff like that. At that point, I was what, 32, 33 years old, 32 years old. I mean, most 32-year-olds, like you said, probably like, I'm not gonna go, sit and
yeah,
go give my free time and stuff like that. But to me, that was invested in myself and in the vision that I had, right? And like you said, knowledge, nobody can take that away from you. Once
yep,
you learn something, you've learned it, Money comes and goes.
yeah, yeah.
So,
No, 100%.
and
Okay,
then another thing too is like, um, one thing that, like you said, don't be afraid to put in the time. And a lot of people want the information, which we give it right on our YouTube and stuff like that. We give the information
yep,
out and stuff like that. But if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty, to the very details, offer your time to somebody, offer to help. Buying an animal, yeah, you're gonna, myself, if somebody's, has questions about it from an animal that I bought or has just hits me up on social media, I'll give them information. But that time, if somebody came in here and helped me clean, which I don't need the help because I have my daughters.
yeah,
But what happened with me and Eslin was that I was able to be in that snake room for hours on end and be able to drill him with questions and see little
yeah,
details that he might not even think is happening, but I'm watching, and
yep,
and something that, generic info you might miss.
gotcha. Um Yeah, so I wanted to get into talking just about general care of these Western hognose. So obviously, you could see behind you, you use rack systems,
Yep.
pretty standard for hognoses. So if you can you just go over a little bit like general husbandry, like what are you doing, like what's your tub setup looking like, and how you do things. I know everyone's always a little bit different, so I always like saying, what do you do personally? And obviously, it works for you. So what do you do?
Yeah. So we're gonna start with the adult females. You know, all my hognose are in tubs now.
Yeah.
With that being said, it's just the most efficient, most hygienic way to maintain them for breeding purposes. So the way I set up my adult females is in 32 quart tubs and shaved asp like medium shaved aspen, and then a water bowl, and then I offer year round. I offer a laben for them filled with moist cocoa core,
Okay.
um, and they love it, man. Like I explain sometimes to people, it's they have the 32-inch, 32 quart bin to be able to move around, but 90% of the time when I go check on them, they're inside that laben,
Yep.
spending most of their time in that moist cocoa core. So that's what I do. Same simple setup, belly heat, and then for the males, same situation. Always forget the tub size. It's I think a V15 for the adult males, and
Okay.
then a V18 for like grow ups and anything under like 50 grams, something like that.
Gotcha.
Shaved aspen as well, water bowls, and then belly heat. Now temps, we go 85 degrees. I keep all my animals at 85 degrees.
85.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I don't see no reason. Of course, it fluctuates. Sometimes, when it's heating, it spikes up to maybe like 86, 87, and then when it drops down because of the temperature fluctuation, the delay of the
Yeah.
thermostat turning on off. But
Yeah.
85 degrees is at peak. What I try to aim for
Okay.
both my males and females. Now, and my hatchlings too. Now, the thing with when breeding season comes around, I do drop temps on my males. I drop them down to about 80, 82, just to
Okay.
give them a little bit of less heat, best so they can have the best sperm production on that.
Yup.
And last year, man, all my males did good job. So
Yeah. Even as simple as I like keeping my males as close to the bottoms as of the racks as possible. I always think that's in itself, because when you have a thermostat running on a tall rack, it's going to vary because that few feet of separation, obviously hot air rises, so it's going to be a little bit hotter towards the top. So like you kind of want your females up there, males towards the bottom. I always thought that was a good strategy as well. But yeah, I was actually a little surprised to hear 85, just because of what I know about most North American colubrids, or technically these are colubroids, but um, I would think they could take a little bit lower, but it doesn't necessarily surprise me. And then what states are these guys coming out of?
so they're from Central Texas, and even like a little bit further west, on the west side of Texas, all the way to like
Okay.
lower parts of Canada.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right.
Yeah, yeah, they have a pretty big range, but I think their concentration is like Central Texas and what is it? What's the state above Texas? Is it Kentucky? Man,
Mm,
I'm bad with geography. I'll tell you right now. So what's that? Oklahoma.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So there's a good Colorado too. There's a very high concentration with I think like Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Colorado is like the biggest concentration of hognose populations, and then there's small pockets scattered all the way to like uh, southern parts of Canada.
Interesting. Okay. Bose is asking here, can you do ambient temp with the hogs? I guess that
Yeah,
depends where you live, obviously, but for us down here, we're all down here in South Florida, so yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So like my room ambient temp, I I close off like during breeding season. I close off the vent in my room, so they're about 80 degrees in room temp. With this is a spare room in my house, so with the rest of the house being at mid 70s, this room with the heat running and stuff like that stays about 80 degrees and 85 hot spot. Um,
Nice.
the thing with ambient temperature, like you said, it depends where you're at. I wouldn't go above 88, 89 degrees is like pushing it.
Yeah.
So like here, South Florida, unless you have a mini split running, or you can keep your temps down in whatever room you're keeping your hog nose, I wouldn't do it. I what's it called? I've seen people do it here, and sometimes, especially this summer, it was really hot. It was the temps ranged a lot,
Okay.
especially like keeping them like in a what's it called, garage, or like shed or something like that.
Yeah.
You have to insulate the garage and the shed to the max to be able to maintain those low mid 80s in there.
Gotcha.
Especially what do we have? Some of these days this summer was like 100. Feels like 102, something like that.
Yeah. No. Definitely. I'm lucky because I don't know what it is, and I was very diligent about tracking the temperatures in my garage. The only way my garage gets like well above the low 80s, and I'm talking like above 82, is if my dad's doing work outside and has the garage door open for an extended period of time. Otherwise, when it stays very constant in here, which I'm very happy about because keeps everything going round. Um, and all my
Yeah,
animals do great.
yeah, that's a plus, man. And that's one thing I'm already planning, on growing and stuff like that. So I have a two-car garage that we never park the cars in. It's storage
Yep.
and stuff like that. So I'm already brainstorming on how to fully insulate that area.
Okay.
Um, to probably eventually, not next year, but maybe the year after that, move the operation into the garage. And stuff like that.
I would recommend get yourself like a Govee system and literally just
Mhm.
leave it in a spot in the garage and just watch it tracked over like a month or the course of a few months, even like as the seasons change and whatnot. See what your garage does because maybe you have a situation like mine where it doesn't get all that bad, but obviously you won't know until you test
Yeah.
it.
Well, like I was telling you, like in the summer, I did a test for shipping. Trying to, I was testing out the face packs and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I think when I did that video, it was midsummer. Like, it was 92 degrees in my garage.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And that was like, I think I tracked it from like 11 to 11 the next morning. And it went from like 92 to, I think, lowest it dropped, it was 88 at night,
Okay.
and then back up to like the 90s and once the sun came out.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I need to figure out a installation process if I move everything back in there.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, one thing I didn't cover was for like the standard, keeping and stuff like that. Like, if you're gonna keep it as a pet, and you're gonna be just that, have one or two reptiles, and you're keeping it in a glass or PVC enclosure. Like a 10 to 20 gallon is good for a male.
Yep.
And then 20 to 40, I'll say, is doing good for a female. Uh, they're burrowing species, so a lot of the time they spend their time just hunkered down under the substrate or
Yep.
inside a hide if you provide a hide.
Yeah, a lot of these smaller species, especially, you just don't see them. They're just hiding a lot because
Yeah,
that's what they're born to do: hide and eat when they can.
yeah. Like, had our first hog nose, when we bought him, he was probably like 15 grams there. So I put him in the 10-gallon, and most of the time he was buried, and feeding days he'll come out when he started getting hungry. He'll come out and start cruising around, and
Yep.
um, you know and it's interesting because you get the what's it called, the discussions on social media and stuff like that about like providing different levels of like enrichment and stuff like that. And yeah, of course, I had, the vines, I had,
Okay.
what's it called? What's it,
Like cork bark or
the
something?
driftwood, yeah,
Oh,
the
okay.
driftwood and
Alright.
stuff like that. And yeah, he climbed up and stuff like that. Um, but he'll fall right off. He'll climb up
Yeah.
and fall. They're not constrictors, so it's hard for them to like actually stay constrict around like something
Yeah,
vertical.
hognoses are definitely not climbing snakes as
Mhm.
far as I could tell. You could even tell by their, like, body structure, they just don't. They're ground species to the max.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, then I also wanted to touch on because obviously we talked about it right before, but me and you are both in our brumation process because we're keeping North American colubrids. So can you talk about brumation a little bit, what you're doing personally in your collection? And yeah, just how you're going about that.
Yeah. So yeah, my adults, sub-adults, and even some of the this year's hatchling are in brumation right now, and it's a 2-month process of them being in brumation. And there's some people. What I do is, like I said, I brumate everything. If they're eating well, and I've had the time to take them off heat, I brumate everything. And I don't see why not, unless you're trying to get size on them, and try and just keep feeding them. But what's it called? It happens in nature. They don't,
Yep.
hatchlings have to brumate to survive the winters. So my mindset was, why not? Do it for here too. And
Yep.
then, so what I do is, it's about a 4-week process to get him into brumation. Feed them, wait 2 weeks for them to digest the last meal, and then on heat still on the 85 hot spot, and then bring them down to about then I just take off the heat because my room temperature is usually about 80. So I take the heat off after those two
Yep.
weeks, let them settle into that temperature for a couple 3 to 4 days. And then once in that process, I will open the vent in here and bring down the temp in the room for about like mid 70s for another 3 4 days.
Gotcha.
And then they go into the fridge. So I have like a commercial beverage fridge that has the glass fronts and stuff like that that I
Yep.
bought. It's one of the like the higher end ones for like commercial use. My thought was I'm gonna spend the money in that and be 100% sure that's gonna work well,
Yep.
because putting your reptiles into brumation, and I use it dual purpose too. I use it for incubation as well.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Cool.
so, the process of once they've digested their food, brought them down to ambient temperature in the room, mid 70s, mid to high 70s. Then the fridge, I usually run it for about a week just to make sure,
Yep.
checking everything out, doesn't fluctuate too much. And I set it to 65. So I'll put them in the formation fridge. I use, what's it called? Food storage containers.
Yep.
For the females, I think they're 90 something, like 98 ounce, 120 ounce, somewhere around that. Depends. I have some like bigger females that are closer to like 350, 400, and I'll use the bigger ones. But anything like 250, 300, I think they're like 98-ounce containers. Filling up with the same thing I filled the lay bins with, moist cocoa core. No water, nothing, just the moist cocoa core allows them to hydrate from
Oh,
there.
really? You go no water.
No water, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then so I put them into the fridge at 65 degrees for 3 4 days, and then I start dropping the temp. From 65, I usually go down to 55 for another 3 4 days, and then down to 50. And then basically 2 months into the fridge, and then same process back out.
Back
Bring
out.
gradually bring up the temp, and then I feed them. But so once they've been on heat for about 3 4 days, I'll feed them and start pairing right away. So I'll
Awesome.
say about a week or two out of brumation, they're already starting to pair up. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Super quick. Yeah, I feel like everything with the hogs, like you get your stuff rolling with them like super quick. They seem to be very very hardy animals and like
Yeah,
easily
they are.
susceptible, like in a good way, easily susceptible to change.
They are, yeah. And that's an interesting part. So like, you know, they're hardier, they withstand the cold temps,
Yep.
because like we're talking about, there's ranges of them in southern Canada. Those air like
Yeah.
Alberta and stuff that it gets below freezing temps.
Yep.
So they're withstanding and their winters are a lot longer than ours too, like Texas
Yep.
winters. So they're withstanding probably like, on the probably, on their coldest month, 30, 20s and stuff like that for extended period of time. So they're pretty damn hardy to withstand. You know, so that's very interesting. And then one other thought too is like I think that's another plus with shipping right now in the winter, right? Like a lot of times we can't ship because it gets too cold. But my mindset is like, man, if I have a face pack or a heat pack in there, and with a hog nose, unless it's freezing in the 20s where I'm shipping, it can
Right.
withstand 40s and 50s degrees, for a day or two. So
Yeah.
they're pretty, like you said, hardy and stuff like that. They withstand the cold a lot more than some more tropical species. Um, what's it called? And then what's it called on the brumation? Um, with the cocoa core makes a big difference because there's some people that what's it called brumate in aspen and
Okay.
add water bowls. What's the problem with that? You got to go in there and change water bowls. You got if they
Yep.
knock them over, the substrate gets the aspen gets wet, starts creating mold and all that stuff. With um, I've never done it on aspen because I started with cocoa core and it
Yeah.
worked out perfect. And it's crazy. Some of my hog noses even came out weighing an extra gram or two after brumation,
Interesting.
just with the process of the hydration through the cocoa core and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I have noticed that if you do it the right way and your animals are like decently bulked up and ready for that brumation, like they'll wind up not shedding a whole lot of weight. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, if you do it the right way. So
Yeah,
yeah, that
yeah.
go ahead.
The thing with the aspen brumation, it wasn't like shedding too much of body mass. It was just dehydration that was
Right.
happening, especially with the fridges. They pull out any moisture
Yeah,
out of the air and stuff like that.
gotcha. Um, all right, perfect. So I did want to talk about your first year of breeding because obviously that's concluded now, and you're starting to move into your second year. As we discussed at the beginning, you did have quite a lot of success. How many hatchlings did you wind up having?
113
So
actually,
113. And how many adult females gave you that 113?
if I'm not wrong, 8, I believe.
8. I mean,
Yes, sir.
that's just like thinking those numbers is crazy in itself. Like coming from
Mhm.
these small colubrids. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. So that's awesome. And then I also wanted to ask. So, what was you obviously you learned everything. You did a very good job with your formation and everything like that. What was your fertility rate looking like on your first clutches? And then I know you had some double clutches, so I'm curious to hear about how it looked on your double clutches as well.
yeah, man. Some females, because like I said, working with Eslin and picking his brains, um, I got jump started. I was able to um, buy some already like sub-adult females or like 2-year females that were going to be ready for this year. So I got really lucky with that, and also I did some joint breedings with another friend of ours that's down here in South Florida too, JC Hugs,
Okay.
and so that's it's like again set me up to be able to produce a lot more. But what I noticed was that the females that were already proven breeders or were on the older age had a better fertility. Um, I bred females that were 2.5, 3 years old, and then some of the joint breeds I did with Jamie at JC Hogs. it's one of his females. I think was 4 years old, and she produced the most out of everyone. Um,
Okay.
but it depends. Like I had one first time 2.5-year-old female produce give me I think it was like 8 or 10 eggs, and like 5 eggs or 6 eggs were good. Out of 6 eggs, 5 hatch, and same thing for the second clutch. Um, actually, I'm trying to think. She gave me 5 eggs that looked like they were good, but none of them hatched.
Okay.
So out of that female, I only got 5 eggs. Now on the other side of the spectrum, the 4-year-old female laid 18 eggs the first round, everything hatched. Laid 18 eggs the second round, 17 hatched.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah,
18, then 18. I mean, that in itself is impressive, and then still getting like 99% success there. So
yeah,
that's
and I
awesome.
didn't repair. It was just
Really?
feeding them, one thing though is I kept pairing until I saw the females like actually, I
Okay.
could see them actually produce growing eggs and stuff like that. So maybe that maybe had considered as a repairing, and the females
Yeah,
just
more
what's it called?
sperm to retain in the pairing.
Correct.
So it,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so and then what I did after the first laying their first set of eggs, I just fed them more frequently, gave them calcium, get them Reptivite, and just got them
Yep.
back up to weight. And a lot of them gained a lot of weight from the first clutch to like the second clutch. It was insanely quick. I was very surprised on how quick they were able to gain that weight, produce those eggs so fast.
Yeah, and it's something I got to see this year because I was telling you backstage beforehand. I had my Texas rat female. She double clutched without me pairing, um, but I noticed how quickly she put on weight. And if you look at the hatch dates, like the hatch dates on the clutches, and I only got one good egg on the second clutch. They were only about 5 to 6 weeks apart, which means that that whole she laid the first set of eggs and then she recycled immediately. It means she started building back immediately. So it's just super impressive to see what this species can do. Um, and I was listening to another podcast, and I believe what they were saying was, when these animals are able to just reproduce in these double clutches, and I know like you even get into the tricolor hogs, and those guys will go 3 or 4, give you a real run for your money. I
Yeah,
mean, what they're trying to do, they know they have to breed to keep like their species going. So that's what they're doing. They're just like, let's burn and churn out all these babies and get them out there. So um, I just think it's super impressive to see what these animals can do, and especially with hogs being at the size they are. I mean, they're small animals in especially in the colubrid world. They're not big by any means, but some of them 18 eggs like that. That's a monster clutch.
yeah, yeah, and they were good sized eggs. They weren't like they were like marble size of that. They were decent sized eggs. And I had some females that did double clutch, and man, they looked spent after the second clutch.
Okay,
And it was just the same process of just feeding them back up, and all of them gained the weight back and got back up to the original weight, aren't back in brumation. Another thing too is my adult females, especially with adult females, they I feed them medium mice when
okay,
they're not in breeding mode, right? Um, when they're breeding, actively in the breeding process and building eggs, I'm feeding them hoppers every 4 days and getting them that calorie intake a lot more.
constant.
And
Okay,
still, yeah, and still, and I supplement it every meal.
gotcha.
you know, and I think that was definitely part of the success with them being able to produce the eggs, and not just produce the eggs, but maintain their health, and be able
Right.
to bounce back. Because that's always, one of my females, my sable female, which was one of like my most coveted projects that was pairings that I was figuring out this that I was doing this year was I think when came out of brumation, she was like 330 grams. After her second clutch, she was like 180 grams.
Okay.
Like she was super skinny.
Yeah.
Now back in brumation, she's back up to 300 grams and is ready to
Awesome.
go for next year already.
Yeah. Um, cool. And then obviously the elephant in the room is how popular hognoses are really getting in the hobby. In my opinion, what I'm seeing snake wise, I feel like it's obviously ball pythons are at the top. And then I've always felt corn snakes are number two, but like I'm almost starting to see, I feel like hognoses are close to it, if not, coming right up on them for that number two spot. And I think part of that has to do with the huge gene pool that's available and the mutations um, that you can get. I know you're working with a variety of things. I'm not asking you to go through all of them, but what are some of your favorite projects that you're working with that you worked with and produced last year, and now coming into this year with some um, newer raised stock going into the breeding program?
Yeah, man. Anything with sable, it's a must have. Sable is a higher hypermineralistic gene, and albino added to it. With my sable female, she was pot set toffee belly, so that's what I was trying to produce this year. Toffee belly sables, which are called mai tais. They're like a
Okay.
orange copper color, so they're really cool snakes. She didn't prove out to be toffee belly, so it was a little of a, I didn't get to get that full circle with that female on
Okay.
there. But I have other sable projects. There's a project called the Permafrost, and that's a three gene visual, and it's a sable, a hypo, and what's it called? So sable, hypo, and caramel gene. And it's very, very interesting. Like it's hard to describe. It's like grays with greens and like blues, tints, and stuff like that. A
Yep.
really cool thing. And then I started that project with two females that were 66% for all three.
Okay.
One female didn't lay at all. She reabsorbed, and one female proved out at least sable. So I have sables now from that
Nice.
gene, from that pairing. But yeah, sables, albino is a must in any, in at
Yeah.
least to me in the hog nose. Um, in some high red albino, purple line stuff,
Dude,
lavenders.
I love your purple line um
Yeah, man.
albino stuff or the lavender albino stuff. Like I've walked up to your table quite a few times. I'm like just looking at those snakes, I'm like, man, am I walking home with a hog nose today? And hasn't
Yeah,
happened yet. But
I
yeah,
know,
no,
man.
those are some super nice animals.
Yeah, so like lavender stuff. Everybody loves the lavender. The only thing with the lavender is still a very high price point. I had lavender albino combos this year, which are corals. I actually had Arctic lavender albinos, which there are not many, out there on the market right now. This
Okay.
year, with me hitting them, and some other people producing them, there's more being sold. People have them in collections to breed, but not too many being sold out there. So those are really cool. Albinos, I said the anaconda pattern, I enjoy it.
Yep.
People like super anaconda too, and super anaconda is the pattern of no
Yeah.
pattern on the body, but I like them in certain color mutations, and some other ones I don't, because I feel like the pattern adds a little contrast and more color to certain combos.
Okay.
What else? Xanthics. I mean, that's another one too, right? Xanthic.
Yep.
And then the new gene that I haven't produced this year, which I added to the roster this earlier this year, is the Swiss chocolate.
Yep.
It's another like hypermelanistic gene, and it's similar to the sable, but once it adds the combos, it works. It adds a little different tones to the combos, um, and it's pretty new actually. It's one of the newest, at least publicly, one of the newest genes out there for hognose. It is the newest one out there right
Okay.
now. So I
Nice.
added a het female, so I'm looking forward to that project. What else? I think what else I have. Um, Man, really, one of my biggest things I think was I wanted to be able to produce pet availability animals, pet quality animals, and also have the higher end stuff for people that
Yeah.
are looking to really breed and produce. Um, I don't want to lock myself into either uh, ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah.
Because I started as a pet person, I'm here today, so I think there's always a place for everybody, and
No,
I
it's
think the pet is
important for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I think the pet quality stuff is going to keep the hobby going and the community going.
And especially with the colubrids, I mean, the pet stuff, um, you know, colubrids are just such easy pet animals, and especially the hognose at the size it stays. Um, yeah, I mean, they're probably one of like the best first pets you can get. Um, but yeah, they're
Especially with the way, you know, living situations are nowadays with like, homes, apartments are just getting smaller and stuff like
yeah,
that. It's like it's hard for somebody to have, especially as a pet, if you have a pet, you want to keep it in the terrarium, you want to keep it, give it a nice setup and stuff like that. It's hard to have the bigger snakes because you have limited space.
of course.
That's another plus that I saw when I really thought about jumping into breeding the hognose. Was like there's a lot of potential there for the breed to be able to, produce and actually have people buy them.
Right. And then keeping on the topic of the genetics and I know your podcast, which I also wanted to talk about because you do a podcast as well, the Scaled Success Reptile podcast. You talk to hognose breeders, and then you're talking to some other keepers like every other week, right? Every other episode, you're kind of mixing
Yeah.
it up a little bit.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I do one episode for hognose breeders a month, and then one episode for anything else within our community.
awesome. Yeah, so one thing you had mentioned, you had talked to it was at least one person. I watched that one episode, talking to people overseas, and I know some of these genetics now, and it's the same with the ball pythons and really just about everything. There's different bloodlines out there. I know there's some of these other genetics out there that are overseas. What can you say about that? And are you planning on maybe adding anything to your collection that's not commonly seen in the US right now?
So yeah, so there's there's one gene out there that's out in the public right now. It's called they named it so there and it's a little confusing because there's an Arctic gene in hognose already, and then they named it Antarctic.
Oh, yes, we
Um,
talked about this a little bit. Yup.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, if it's doing with the pictures I saw and stuff like that, what it's almost a and some type of axanthic or it's like a gray scale morph. So it's really looks really nice. It's like grays with blues. And they're trying to prove it out, see if it's recessive or incomplete right now.
Yup.
So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I would definitely want to add something like that. I'm already thinking like, you know, that and that to Swiss chocolate,
Yeah.
what where would it go? Because like the Swiss chocolate is antique. It's very different from like the sable axanthic. Swiss chocolate axanthic is almost a fully black hognose. It
Okay.
has it throws out a lot of the darker pigments. Where the sable axanthic is more of the bluish undertints and a little more like it lightens up the sable a little bit. So that's where like when I saw those pictures, my mind went to.
Okay.
And then
Cool.
just talking to certain people that I've interviewed and stuff like that, there's a couple of people working on trying to prove certain things out, but I haven't seen them yet. I think I think
Gotcha.
next year, there's like one or two people that are going to be releasing something if they could prove it out, which I don't know what it looks like yet. We'll see, but I'm always down. I'm not I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon for every new morph
Yeah.
because um, I want to see what's going to create and if it's going to work with good with my projects. I think that's another thing too, where I decided I don't want to do sable albinos. I want to go more to the darker
Yup.
combos with the sable. Same thing with the Swiss chocolate. With the more browns, the darker colors and stuff like that.
Are a lot
And
of people going that albino direction, and that's kind of what's making you maybe want to look at a different path?
yeah, yeah, the sable albino, it's the most produced combo in sable gene right now.
Okay.
Um, and they're great animals. They're beautiful, high oranges, like very like glow in the dark reds and stuff like that. Um, but I think there's a over not over, but I'm already late to that project, right?
Yep.
For me to catch up, I rather work something else different and create my own, or be at the forefront of a different project and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's something that's super important and something I try to talk about, especially with the ball pythons, because there's so many debates and people going back and forth about these genes and what's good and what's not. In reality, who the hell cares? Breed what you want to breed and make the animals you want to make. Um, my stance on it, though, and how I try to look at things is, I want to make things that one I like, and two make things that maybe necessarily haven't been seen before. So, when you look at the market and see all these things available, like you have these sable albinos, I'm working with the puzzle gene on the ball pythons. There's a certain incomplete dominant gene that I see prevalent. It's literally in half of the animals on Morph Market. There's an incomplete dominant in half of the puzzle animals on Morph Market. That makes me, one, I'm not super crazy about it, so I'm not going to work with something I'm not super crazy about. And two, how would that make me any different from the rest of that 50% of people when I'm selling animals eventually that I produce? So in my head, I'm like, hey, well, I got to be diverse. I got to try to do something a little bit different. So I think your mindset with that can be related on a bunch of different levels with all these different species. So I think it's something super important. And I appreciate your mindset on that at least.
Yeah, man. And you know what? And like being new, I know I'm not gonna be, like unless I get really lucky and something new pops out of one of my
Yeah.
pairings. I'm not. I know I'm not gonna be the world's first. I'm not gonna be the person producing the first combos and stuff like that. But I want to be able to produce, like you said, what I like, and as well what's going to draw people's attention for the sales. Because at the end of the day, too, you know, I am running a business, and I can't. It's I got to be mindful of producing animals that are going to move. So I'm not, you know, raising 100 plus hatchlings 2 years in, right?
Yep.
At that point, it doesn't make sense to breed as much. And that's one thing I have in mind too. Is like next year, yeah, I have 12 females. Um, how much am I really going to breed all 12? Um, but we'll see where, I still have a couple months left, and you never know what happens. Got a couple shows, Morph Market, and all that stuff. So we'll see
Right.
what happens with that. But I think that's a mindset that I think we all need to have is how long can you sustain all your hatchlings and your breedings if they don't move, and you got to raise these
Yep.
animals into being yearlings or so. And sometimes it's not a bad thing, because what a lot of people are looking for yearlings and almost ready to breed
Yep.
animals, especially males. If I'm raising a male for a year, he's ready to breed at that point. I'm gonna charge a premium price point on it. I'm not gonna give you
Yep.
a hatching price point. So it's a give and take, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I've put in more meals into more time, but I'm gonna have to charge for more too at that point.
No, 100%. Um, yeah. So you actually answered a question. I was gonna ask if you had any like potential world's first, maybe things in the making, because I know you're working with some of those cool combos. But even like you said, even if you're not, world's first, like who cares? Like, because maybe you're like fourth or fifth guy, and even the first few people in front of you, maybe they only produce one animal, maybe two. And what if they hold them back? Then it's not even available to the market. So in reality, of course, people care, but like, who cares? Because it's not something that's available or something that's there. So even if you're a little late to that party per se, you still might have something pretty damn cool on your hands and pretty rare. So,
Yeah, I mean, like one of the most, the best pairings and combos and price point was my lavender albino, Arctic lavender albinos, and um, out of that clutch, I hit was it two Arctic coral, so the triple visual, and then two corals, one lavender, Arctic lavender het albino, and then double heads. Out of I think it was like 9 eggs, the odds were definitely on my side on that.
yeah.
Um, I wasn't even aiming for Arctic corals. I wasn't. I was. I think the male was 66% het albino, so I just
Okay.
wanted to prove him out. Um, but I hit, and they're really nice animals too because they have purple line in them, so they have
Nice.
deeper colors. So they're great. Um, but next year, what I really want to do is, especially at the shows, I want to keep doing a good amount of shows. I've done this year, I don't know, maybe like 6, 8 shows already,
Yeah.
something like that. I've been hitting them hard, and so I want to keep going next year. I'm going to go to Arlington next year in April. I'm going to do
Awesome.
Reptilian Nation in February here in West Palm Beach, and I just want
Yep.
to fill up my schedule next year to be able to, have animals for every show that I do.
Right.
But one of the biggest things with the coral combos, they're beautiful and they're great animals, but they're very expensive. They're not everyday person's gonna buy them. People stop, like you said, people stop and like, wow, what is that? It's a high pink snake, Like how often do you see something like that in the
Yep.
different contrast colors too? So next year, being said, I want to produce lavenders, plain lavenders where it could still be at, they're still expensive, but it's more attainable for the pet owner. If they want to spend a little bit premium on the
Yeah.
lavender, they can spend instead of having to, just Google at a triple visual. So that's one thing
Right.
I have in mind next year. I want to be able to produce more just single gene lavenders.
Yep. Um, you kind of segued yourself into the next question, then I'll go back to general hogs. But being new to vending, how has that been kind of for you so far? Because obviously, anyone can sit in their home and breed snakes and even sell them online with relatively limited interaction, like not seeing people face to face and things like that. It's a whole different ball game, and we've vended at the same shows together a couple times now. It's a whole different ball game when you're standing there in front of people and you're trying to sell your animals. So how has it been for you so far? Um, just seeing that out there and playing the vending game.
I enjoy it. I like getting out there. I think that it's a must if you really want to grow in the community and get your name out there. It's a must to be able to, if you have the reputation already to just be able to sell morph market on your website, great. But I'm new. I got to put in the time. I got to put in
Yep.
the grind to be able to get my name out there and do everything that to make myself successful, right? And for us to be, you've seen it becomes a family event for us. It's my
Yeah.
wife's out there. Um, my wife works a full-time job and stuff like that, and sometimes she's tired after the shows and stuff like that. But it's funny because she actually enjoys it.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I could
she
tell she
enjoys
does. Yeah. She
Yes,
likes being
she
there.
enjoys it. Yeah, she enjoys it, making the sale and telling people about the hognose that we produce and stuff like that. And then my daughters go in and help as well. So
Yep.
it's become fun. And then it allows us to just travel too. It's an excuse to go and travel, even if it's just 2 hours north from here. We
Right.
go and hang out with friends and stuff like that. Um, so I enjoy it. And I think my sales have been 50-50 shows and morph market.
Okay.
And then maybe even more shows because I've gotten after show sales from people that have stopped at your
Gotcha.
table. Um, So I think the shows have definitely been a part of my success there. Um, and then, like I said, I enjoy it. I have no problem talking to people,
Yeah.
um, spending the time on the weekend there. It's to me, it's a no brainer.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, and I definitely enjoy it so far too. Even just like getting out there, like presenting your animals and being able to be like to, these people that don't even know who the hell you are and being able to be like, yeah, I made this. This animal's cool as hell. Like, look at me, look at my animals. Like, um, and there's nothing more uh prouder than that. Like I just love showing off, the fruits of your own labor, as I like to phrase it, because it's just cool. And then when you get the sales, it only puts a cherry on the top.
And what I do tell people, it is work.
Oh yeah,
Vending, it is work. After that Sunday at 4 or 5, you break down stuff like that, you are dead. That Monday, it's rough to get, especially if you're setting up your own booth and everything
yeah.
and
No, so
actually
I was gonna say, I'll be honest, I haven't gone through that whole work because like I haven't had like the whole setup. I've been lucky enough to have good friends offer me table spots and whatever. And me and you are actually gonna be at the same table in a couple weeks in Orlando, so that's gonna be fun. Um, but yeah, so
yeah, so
I haven't had that whole takedown setup, more like help out, and I'm just kind of setting up my animals and like some t-shirts and whatever. So
mhm.
yeah, I know that's gonna add a whole other complexity to it.
Yeah, and then another thing too is it's different between just sitting behind your table and waiting for people to show up. Man,
Yeah.
I stand 98% of the time I'm at a show.
Yes.
From
Yep.
moment opening to close, I'm standing in front of my table. I walk out in front, talk to people, even if it's just information, I talk to
Yep.
people. If not, I'll probably be bored out of my mind.
Oh
But
yeah.
just standing there, what is it? Usually shows are from like 9 to 5. It's a long day. Two straight days. Usually, I like to set up the day before, so all I have to do is that morning bring my animals in, put in
Yep.
my display, and be ready to go. But like I said, it's work.
Yeah.
It's not. It is tiring, but it's worthwhile. And I've been lucky where like my friends that do hognose that live within the South Florida area, they're already well established breeders. So they don't do many of the shows. So when I come and set up, I mean, I'll say my setup is pretty cool, pretty nice, right? Like
Yeah. No,
I
it is.
I want to be professional. I want to be presentable to the person that's going to buy my hognose, and set myself apart from other vendors too. But like you said, like last some shows I have 3 displays. I think 24 deli cups in each display. So people stop by and they're like, "Wow, we've never seen so many hognose in one table," you know.
Right.
And I do get the satisfaction when people say that. Like I feel proud, and they say, "Wow, these hognose look healthy. They look great, good coloration and stuff like that." So
Yeah.
it just cements all the work that I've been putting in.
Gotcha. And I do want to ask you about this, and maybe it's not really stepping on toes because I doubt these people will be watching these podcasts. But I probably feel the same way you do. How does it feel when you're kind of at these shows and there are maybe some of these other vendors that are either flippers or they're just like their animals you could tell are probably shouldn't be on the table that day because they're not established enough, or the prices are slashed a lot lower than yours. Like, how does that feel for you? Because I can tell you when I walk around these shows, I hate seeing some of these colubrids on tables. Like, I'm just like, these animals should not be here today. I'm like, they look like they barely are out of the egg, with their size. Like, I'll see corn snakes that are, a quarter of the size of the rat snakes I hatched out from when they hatched out. And I'm just like, man, I wonder if these things even had a meal. So, how does that felt for you? Because obviously we're going to all the same shows, so you're seeing the same people that I see.
um, so I'll tell you this: the resellers, there's a place for them, right? I don't know if maybe shows maybe is a place for them. I think maybe it should be breeders. But pet shops are resellers and stuff like that. But like you said, when you see sometimes either the animal is not ready to be go to a new home, or just really bad like sanitary conditions, stuff like that. That it pisses me off,
Yeah.
because it affects everyone within our community. Um, and I know, like, but then I do think on the other side is like it upsets me for the animal and for the presentation they're giving to other people that are coming into those shows, because you do have a lot of first timers come to these
Yep.
shows, and I want them like that's why I want all my stuff very clean, very neat, presentable, because I want the stigma of reptiles to go away, the bad stigmas to go away.
Yep.
And if we are clean, we're organized, presenting good information, presenting healthy animals, then little by little, that stigma is going to go away. Education is a very big part of it, and I think it's hard to give accurate information when you're reselling a lot of 10 plus species.
Yep.
You know, maybe you
100%.
have kept, maybe they have kept or bred those species once in their lifetime and stuff like that, or whenever it is. But it's hard to give 100% accurate information or the best information to somebody that's buying that um, animal from them. And then also too, I give myself a pat in the back. It makes me happier that I'm presenting something better than they have on their table.
Yeah, but I could see how maybe to you, because I know how it feels for me, and not that, like, I should be discouraged, but it's discouraging when you see people walk around with the deli cups from these types of breeders or keepers or whatever, these types of vendors. When you have an animal of better quality sitting right on your table, it's just like, "Oh, man, really? Like, you went with that one?" Um,
It
so
is.
yeah,
It is.
yeah,
Yeah. I you know what? When I see that, I wish the best, but I already know most of the time the outcome with that animal, right?
right.
A lot of times there's going to be trouble feeding, especially in colubrids. It's going to
Yep,
be trouble feeding. It's either going to have not information that the not have information that the especially first time buyers, because sometimes they don't know any better as well,
yeah,
right? Um, it's that's where I see the downfall. Where like I know if they're buying it from me, they're getting a whole downbreak of I keep Husbandry Pro,
yep,
so all my hatchlings, all my adults. Some people might say it's overkill, but that's the way I like to run my stuff. It's all my hatchlings come with a full info sheet. Um, the parents' genetics, hatch date, all the feedings, refused feedings, if I've scented that animal,
yep.
all that stuff comes in with that. So that's my point of view. It's like, damn, I wish you would have bought it for me. You would have got a better experience, and then same thing, it would help the hobby out and the community out more.
Yeah. Um, well, the problem is with that potential negative experience is that sometimes that could push people out. Is like, what happens to that first time keeper, they kill the snake even though it may have not really been their fault or fully their fault. They kill the snake and then they're like, "Oh, I don't wanna get another snake again, like, I just killed this first one." So that's where the unfortunate part comes in, really, because it's like, then what? Now we just lost another person from the very small community we already have. So,
Yeah, I
um,
agree. Yeah, and I think we're in the same page on that. That's where it hurts me. You know, and I don't know. There's no way to combat that. Well, the way is by us producing better animals, by us
yeah,
getting better information to the people, having more hygienic, you know, uh, what's it called, even just deli cup presentations,
yep,
right? Like if one of my animals, poops in the deli cup, I go right away and I change it right there and
right
then.
away.
I don't wait
Right
till the end of
away.
the day or
No.
to the next morning to change it. I change it right away.
Yep.
I'll
No,
always
100%.
bring extra deli cups and stuff like that with me just in case.
Yep. Um, Now circling back to the hogs, my apologies being all over the place. We got into the show talk. One thing I wanted to mention because something I learned from you this year is the lifespan of some of these hognose. Like I found out that they're much shorter than some of the other general lifespans we hear of some of these reptiles. And I believe you told me it's like what, like sometimes 7, 8 years on like breeders.
Yeah, I would say you're getting, I mean, a good breeder female, you're getting a good 10 years out of her.
Okay.
You know, but it is shorter. Pets are definitely gonna last a lot longer. Um, and this is information I'm getting from people that have been in a lot longer. And that's it's interesting because I started researching a little more and started asking different people that have a lot more experience than I do.
Yeah.
And because we're still at the young age of keeping hognose at large scales, where maybe it's been maybe the last 15 years, if that, that's been like at real breeding and
Gotcha.
keeping hognose for expanded time. So we're just getting to that period of where people are seeing um,
They're needing
hognose
to
really
start
last.
cycling them out. Oh, okay.
Correct.
Yeah. Gotcha.
You know, you do get your weird, once in the blue moon, just that breeder that just didn't make it out of breeding, brumation, or didn't make it out of the breeding season.
Yeah.
Females that just don't bounce back. Unfortunately, it's part of it, right? Um, but yeah, I would say I would give a 10-year average. Um, and then I think it's part of two. It's we're feeding them mostly mice, right? Like 98, 99. I mean, most of us 100% mice. What's it called? A mice diet, which
Yeah.
especially for Western hognose, it's not their main diet in the
Yeah.
wild. Um, we're overbreeding them as we are. A
Yeah.
lot of us we don't give our hognose breaks every other year and stuff like that. They're producing double clutches. So I think that all definitely affects the lifespan of how long we're able to keep breeder, especially females. Males, I think,
Okay.
are more resilient because they're just in there for a couple minutes doing their job and then they're
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
females are going through that whole process of building up the
Yes.
eggs. And like I said, I have females that went from 300 plus grams to 100 and something grams after their second clutch. That's a big difference in a small animal,
Yes. Yes.
almost
Very
half their
much.
weight. So I would say, yeah, I'm looking forward to years from now to maybe able to tell you, no, my hog nose lasted me 20 years.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so hopefully, we'll do another interview many years from now and see
Oh,
where it's at,
100%.
because I am doing um things that I think I'm doing, and of course, a lot of people think, hey, I'm doing the best for my animals, right?
Right.
But I want to be able to say from my own experience, this is how long my hog nose is lasting from hatchling to end of life, right?
Yeah.
Um, Healthy, feeding. You mentioned something at the beginning with the quails, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I wanted to, talk to you about potentially diverse diet because I know, in the wild, hognoses are eating a lot of like amphibians, right? Frogs,
mhm.
toads, lizards. Um, and now, funny enough, my last week's guest, Billy, he had sent me a little article he wrote. He goes to like Asian markets and will get like frog legs even and all these other different things and feed them to a bunch of different species. So what I wanted to ask you is have you ever considered, maybe for your adult breeders, have you considered potentially getting some of these other food sources that you could maybe vary up their diet with?
Yeah. So there's this, and they're actually going to be a guest on my podcast. They're called Reptilinks. And
Yeah.
they're full prey, basically reptile sausages.
Yes.
Um, so I do buy Reptilinks and then sprinkle it in here and there. The Reptilinks I buy, they have many different blends, but I buy the frog and quail mix.
Okay.
Um, so I buy them and I give it to them. Now, not all my snakes like it. Some of them will, hiss at it, strike at it, run away from it, and then like I'll give them a Repti link, and then I'll give them mice, and they'll take the mice right away. But I think that's just so many years of eating, such a long time just eating mice. Um, so I do Repti links here and there. I will try I want to try quail. I want to try like actual whole prey quail and see how they work.
He the guy's local. He's in between me and you, so you could probably make the drive up to him. If you
Okay.
want to hit him up, I'll pass you the information once we hop off of here. Probably the day old for you on the hogs, and maybe only for your females. I don't even know if your males will be able to take them. To
Yeah,
be
and the males for
honest,
sure won't. Yeah, it'll have to be females, and that's a good thing
or you
about
might have to go for button quail, which he doesn't have. He has I think it's called is it the Caternix or something? That's like the European species, and then there's these button quail, which are much smaller. Um,
Mhm.
that I know, you can maybe get elsewhere.
And that's why like the Reptilink is good because like they make like 5 gram links that a
Gotcha.
male can easily take down and stuff like that. They're
Okay.
pretty easy for him to take down. So anybody that has colubrids and other species, check them out. Some it's a hit or miss with the animal that likes it. We give it to our
Right.
bearded dragon too because they have a bearded dragon
Oh,
blend.
cool.
He loves them. He loves
Nice.
them.
I can see a
And I think
beardy liking those.
yeah, I think the bearded dragon one has like there's different ones, but the one we get has a like greens, veggies, fruits, and I think it has rabbit. And
Okay.
he loves it. Yeah.
Interesting.
So they have different mixes and stuff like that, and they do everything in house. Everything
Okay.
is they buy locally. I'm not wrong. They buy locally, but they cook the animals, decompose it, and well, break it down and then create it
Right.
into a sausage. But
Gotcha.
we'll, like I said, I'll have him on my podcast and give more info. I think it's the first episode next month, if I'm not wrong. Gotta check my
Cool.
schedule. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I agree. If you're able to diversify your animal's diet, go ahead and do it. I think it's just, is it going to hurt? We never know to and try, but I think it's just going to benefit the animal.
Hurt? No, I don't think there's any world where it would hurt it unless the food was bad per se,
Mhm,
or like
mhm,
um but yeah, I can't imagine there being, because the thing about the rodents is that they are so fatty, and then even, you're not feeding rats, but for these, even larger colubrids who need rats, like I feed my adult Texas rats, like they're getting small rats. We're talking 5+ foot snakes, and like they got decent girth to them, and they could take down a small rat no problem. But that rat's fatty. Um, in the long run, it's probably not the best for their health. So, hearing from other people about what poultry can do, and plus this species in particular, like they climb trees and they're known to eat birds in the wild. So, I'm just excited to see the kind of health benefits that might come out of it.
yeah, yeah, and then again, I mentioned it earlier. It's like supplementation. Just calcium,
Yeah.
the Reptivite, what's it called, probiotics too, and stuff like that.
Okay.
I give everything to my hog nose.
Nice.
I, I'm trying to give them the best healthy quality of life that I can, and if it's me taking a little extra time to dust their mice with,
Yeah, of
you know, uh,
course.
minerals and stuff like that, why not? And it's
Yeah.
to me, it's inexpensive to buy all that stuff.
Oh, it is, because you get the powders, and like all it takes is a little bit of dust to really, you know, layer them up like a
Yeah.
breaded chicken. Like, yeah,
Yeah, and one thing that I recommend is just like having a good feeder source. Whatever you're feeding,
yeah,
having a good feeder source is so
yes,
important. There's so many. I'm not gonna name any companies by name, but like there's so many companies out there are such mass producers that the quality is not there.
yeah,
Um,
agreed.
and I got to give a shout out to Emilio Villarino Reptiles because I
Yeah,
get all my mice from him. And it came at the perfect time because where I was buying my mice from one of the the producers, and I started to see the quality drop in the mice, and the availability as well. And
Yeah.
Emilio hit me up, was like, "Hey, I have mice. You're interested? That's perfect timing." So at least that's another thing too. Is like I feel more comfortable now too as well feeding mice to my hog nose because I know where they're coming from. I know what he's feeding them and how he's maintaining his
Yep.
mice. It's a
Exactly.
plus. And I know not everybody has the luxury to have somebody locally producing stuff,
Yep. Well, now I
but
now I have yeah, now I have my source for everything because I'm also getting some frozen mice from Emilio, mostly for like the smaller, like hatchling sized animals, and as they grow up a little bit. Um, the rats I recently switched over. I was getting them kind of third party to me, and I have a better source that was from someone I trust. So either way, I know I'm getting a little bit better quality there. And now these quail, I know they're coming from someone pretty good who has a solid operation going on. So yeah, I 100% agree with you that quality of feeders is important.
mhm, and was say the not just the quality, but like sometimes the price point of by being able to buy good quality,
That too.
it's important. And I'll tell you that if I'm feeding my animals better and I'm spending more money, my animals are going to cost more. I have to
Yeah.
be able to offset. It's hard to hawk nose the babies. When they're fresh out of the eggs, I'm feeding every 4 or 5 days. Day old pinky that's worth 30, 35 cents. Even
Yep.
sometimes 40 cents. That's 100 every month. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And then I have a small operation. If I had some producing 300, maybe 300, imagine that bill. Um, so I think that's one thing that people need to keep in mind too when they're looking for certain animals. It's like price points does affect just like anything, right? Like what you're putting into that animal and stuff.
Right. Um, all right, one last thing before we kind of wrap up. So you were kind of giving me maybe an alluded part to this answer, but so as you kind of mentioned, the hognoses have only really been going in captivity now for like the last 15 years, gaining this kind of popularity. And now obviously there's all these different morphs that have come about in a relatively short period of time, you would say. Like 15 years for all these things to come out. I would say that's relatively short, even though, their turnaround time for breeding is pretty quick, but still a short amount of time. Um, and I know something that's very like sought after in the Colubrid game, I'll say. A lot of people are into locality things. Do you know of any locality Western hognose keepers that keep like straight wild type from a specific locality? And also, I want to get your mindset on bringing new wild caught bloodlines back into the hobby because I could only imagine that, especially with the excessive morphs, that there's a lot of inbreeding going on coming from probably the same stock just trickling all the way down over these last 15 years or so. So are you aware of that? Because I'm really not when it comes to hognose.
Yeah, so there's certain locality morphs or like the sable is actually a locality morph out of I think it's Montana, if I'm not
Okay,
wrong. That's where the sables were found. So it's basically a locality morph.
cool.
They were found in the wild. But there's other stuff like there's this pattern. It's called Cascade. It came from Cascade County in Texas.
Okay,
And there's a couple other little things here and there that are still being proven out as well. Um, and then there's maybe like a handful of people that live within those areas where it's legal to collect hognose from wild that are collecting them, and some are keeping them and breeding them into their projects. Some are just if they find gravid females, they keep the females, lay the eggs, and release them back into the wild. But yeah, there's a handful of people working on that. Look, if I move to one of those states, I'm probably gonna go and try to find some hognose and
right.
collect them from wild.
Yeah.
It's a no brainer to me,
Yep.
and I think adding the new bloodline, it's a must.
Yep.
uh, because we have since we've had the hognose in captivity, we haven't added new, fresh, wild caught blood very often, and there's been a lot of inbreeding. So I think
That's what
it's a
I feel
must.
like I've noticed. Like I haven't seen a lot of people say, and I'm in a lot of different groups. I haven't seen a lot of people say, "Oh, look at my wild caught hog nose." Like I just never ever see that. So that's why it was something I was curious about, and I see it a lot with other North American rat snakes. There's quite a few people that I follow that are really interested on these very specific locales on different things.
Yeah, and I think there's the thing there's a lot of states that prohibit though keeping wild caught
Right.
Western hognose,
Okay.
so that's part of it. And then like there's certain areas in Texas that you can keep them with a permit, or wild collect and then re-release stuff like that. So there's a
Gotcha.
handful of people doing it out in Texas, um, but they're limited on what's available. So it's like if they're available, they usually they sell out really fast. Um, but I actually have a pair of they're actually I just got them like 2 or 3 months ago, um, and they're het albinos from a uh wild bloodline.
Oh,
Um,
okay. So
and
they're
so
F1s. They're
yeah,
F1 captivity
they're
animals.
yeah F1 captives. Yeah, yeah. So I
Okay,
have a
cool.
pair, male and female, that I'm gonna introduce into my albino stuff, because
No, that's good.
it's
That's already new blood, and that keeps it fresh. So
yeah, so, I haven't posted anything of that during my quarantine room and stuff like that, so,
right.
but I'm a firm believer that, um, even within captivity, I think there's different bloodlines, in different people's collections. I imported a hognose from Europe as well this year
Okay.
too, just to try to get bloodline from across the world into my
Right.
projects here and stuff like that. Um, you know, even within my projects, I'm already trying to work that in. I want to keep healthy bloodlines all
Yeah, of
10 plus
course.
years, a lot longer. So I'm all for it. Like I said, if I have a chance to be able to collect some wild hog nose, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
No,
doing
that's
it.
cool.
So yeah,
All right. Awesome. I got a few kind of like wrap up questions. I've kind of been asking these to everyone.
yeah,
So obviously I've called this the Colubrid Corruption Podcast. And so far what I've seen across my two guests and a couple of the future ones, um, is like diversity is a huge thing. Now you're super new, so I don't blame you for focusing on the one species, but I know some people have asked you before, are there any potential plans of any adding anything down the line that you can maybe see anything that you've seen that's like, that might interest me.
yeah. Next year, I'm gonna buy. I was gonna do it this year, but I had other plans to buy, the Swiss and Swiss chocolate
Okay.
stuff. So I definitely took out a big chunk out of my budget for adding
Yeah.
stuff. Um, but next year I'm gonna add a pair of Madagascar giant hognose.
Okay. Cool.
So I want a pair of that, and then other than hognose species, um, I want to add lizards and down the line. But my thing with the lizard species is like it's a lot more work.
Yes.
So that's where like I'm teetering, tottering. Man, I want monkey tail skinks.
Those guys are cool.
They're really cool. Some people think they're ugly, but I think they're prehistoric. They're communal, so I think that's another cool
Yeah.
part about them. That and actually, um, I'm gonna add isopods like now.
Okay.
And
Cool.
that was one of my things. Like I wanted to do a little bit of diversity, but I didn't want to add too much extra work or responsibility to my plate. Still being new with the hog nose, so I took isopods. They're easy. I've been
I
doing a lot of
saw you
research.
I saw you make a post about them. Did you set up something in like a bioactive
So
enclosure or like
I've had, yeah. So like my Kenyan Samboa was my daughter's Kenyan Samboa, my youngest.
okay,
It's in a bioactive.
gotcha.
My bearded dragon, it's in a 4x2x2 bioactive too as well. So I've been messing with them for the last year and a half. Just adding them to our enclosures, springtails and stuff like that. And then just actually yesterday was it? I did a big order to start my breeding colonies and stuff like that. So
Nice.
you guys are looking for, in the next couple months, I'll be providing some, I'll be have some isopods for sale and springtails and stuff like that. Um,
Awesome.
so yeah, you know,
Cool. All right. So yeah, you're gonna get that ball rolling on the diversity. I feel like colubrid breeders are super prone to um, wanting to expand into other species, just because I think that interest gets peaked immediately.
yeah,
Um, again, I've never said like I don't want to talk shit on ball python breeders, and I am one myself, but I don't know. There's just something that I feel like people just have like I don't want to say like a mental block, but it's like there's so many people in that industry who like don't even look at these other species, and that's what I wanted to make this show about, is teaching about all these other species so that maybe that person could spark that interest and get into them someday.
yeah.
um, and
And
I
you
didn't
know
start
what?
off with the ball pythons, so
Yeah, and there's a species for everybody, right? Like
yeah.
a lot of people see the hognose and they're like, those things are small, derpy looking and stuff like that. I see them. I think they're very interesting animals, cool looking,
Oh yeah,
and
and
I'm not afraid
to
to
each
say
their
it.
own, 100%. But yeah,
And like you said, the diversity between each morph, it's insane. You know,
yeah,
it's very very cool. So yeah, so that's what plans in the future, and here in the near future as well, adding diversity.
cool. um and then like what are your thoughts on the hobby in general today, because obviously we're kind of seeing in this weird time where economy's a little bit down, disposable income isn't there, sales are slow for some people. So what are your thoughts, and like what do you see the future being? What's your outlook on it?
Man, I think we're in a growth period right now, and we're just going through the growing pains of the hobby. I think like any within the like you said, the economy, and it's down right now. People aren't spending money. I mean, I went out Black Friday. We went out with my wife to get some stuff, and the stores were empty compared to other times I've gone
Really?
out. The stores are empty. So I was telling my wife like, okay, I see the down, the less spending trend in retail, general, everyday retail, and in the reptile community. I think it's just one of those growing times that we need to hold and wait, and it's gonna come back full circle. Um, but I think at the moment we have the most influence in the general public right now. More people aren't getting less. The stigma is less about reptiles right now. There's more education out to the public. There's
Yeah.
more shows going on like this and Snake Discovery, Brian, all that stuff. Yeah. We're just at that cusp where in the next I mean, let's 5-year plans, right? There's anything major happens within 5-year spans. Next 5 years, whoever holds and invests now and stuff like that and does it properly and puts in time into the growing, if you're growing a business, a reptile business, or just a community, I think it's gonna skyrocket.
Yeah. No,
And I'm not saying that
I'm
as a
with you.
salesperson,
Yeah.
you know, I'm saying that as what I've researched and what I saw. You
Yeah.
know, the COVID years, it was a little bit of a fluke, but still there was still growth. Even if COVID didn't happen, I think growth is still happening.
Yeah.
Organically still happening. You know,
Yeah.
little girls,
I'm
are
bull.
getting into them.
Oh yeah. I'm bullish on the industry as a whole, but I don't think everyone quite shares that outlook right now, especially those who are feeling the struggles on their finances, who put a little too much money than they could handle on this.
Look, another thing too on that is I see in my point of view, I'm brand new.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've put in my podcasts, my YouTube videos, making connections with other communities, not just the Colubrid and Hognose communities. Um, but my sales, I don't know. It's hard. It's my first year. I have nothing to compare it to, right? I can't compare myself to
Of
the
course.
the the top readers. Um, but there is, I think, a slowdown. But what was I say? I'm still happy with what I've moved this
Yep.
year. I've sold something every show. Keep selling on Morph Market. A handful
Awesome.
of stuff every month. So I don't know. It's. I think you just got to put in the extra work right now to be able to
Yep.
sell and move and grow grow the reptile community.
100%. All right. My kind of final question to everyone is, what would you have to say to the average person who's not quite sure, but they're kind of seeing hog noses? Maybe they have some snakes already. They're seeing hog noses and they're looking pretty interesting. What's your kind of message to them as someone who's been doing this for a couple of years now and getting into breeding? Like, what do you have to say about keeping a hog nose just on a small
Yeah.
level?
They're the best species you can keep. Uh, no, but don't jump on the trend. That's what I'm gonna tell you. Tell people, don't just jump on the trend. Um, Keep them because you really want to keep them, and you're gonna be okay with having these animals sitting in your racks or in your enclosures when there nobody else is interested in them. That's the biggest thing. Other than that, they're great animals to keep.
Yeah.
If you're for pets, I think everybody should have one. They're very inquisitive. They're small. They're good for kids to handle. And I think they're that since they're cute because they have those little cute hog faces. So one girl came up to my table one show and she says, "Oh, they're like the pugs of reptiles." I was like, why not? So I think they're pretty cool about like being the little introduction snake where some people might be a little afraid of them, but they're cute, so they still hold them
Yeah.
and might buy them. You know, they're less intimidating, I think.
Awesome. Um, Before we end, have you seen this?
Also, make
So
it
this come in the
dynamical or
chat.
just shows I'm not sure venomous factor. I haven't heard anything. There's always the what if the venomous factor. But the problem with that is that it's not really well studied on what the toxins that they actually have do. But it is a possibility. It's happening in Europe. King snake in Spain, king snakes are banned and stuff like that.
Which ones?
Um, Kings. I'm not sure which one, but I think just in
Oh,
general,
okay.
king snakes are banned in Europe,
Really
in Spain. Yeah. Um,
interesting.
so there is possibility, of course, but that's why I think the education part is very important.
Yep.
Not just educating the possible, for us, the client or somebody that's interested in buying one or the first keeper, but interested in educating, local, what's it called, local politicians, local people that are influential in the community. I personally do um, what's it called, a presentation at my daughter's school where teachers and parents and kids come in and sit down and listen about hognose, and a lot of times they enjoy it. Um, but yeah, I haven't heard anything specific. I'm gonna look into it. I'm gonna make a couple text messages after and see if there's any truth to what's going on with that. But there
Yeah.
is always the scare. And we've seen it here in Florida, right? The last 2 years
Yeah.
have been a lot of scares that we've had.
Yep. 100%. All right. Awesome. So Alvaro, first off, just want to say thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight on this show. I definitely appreciate it. I think there's 23 likes on here, so I want to say we probably had over 25 viewers over the course of the entire hour 45 minutes. Guys, everyone who hasn't, in the description, I put the link to Alvaro's Discord, and I know he has his whole link tree set up, so that's why I only put his Instagram. So just go to his Instagram and you can get to all of his links from there. Alvaro, what do you have to say to everyone who came to hang out with us tonight?
Thanks for stopping by, guys. I really appreciate you guys take your time just to hear us talk about the animals that we love keeping and working with. Like he said, go ahead and hit the like button if you haven't here yet. Subscribe to both of our channels, and
Thanks.
one last thing, I'm gonna be running a Cyber Monday sale on my Morph Market, starting tonight at midnight. So check out if you're interested in a Hognose,
Oh
check
yeah.
that out. Like I said, go to my Instagram, my link tree is right there, everything's there. And then we're gonna be in Orlando December 9th and 10th.
9th and 10th.
Um, Repticon Orlando. We're gonna be vending with For Real 3D Paul
Yeah.
at his booth. And so come out and check us out and buy a hog nose, buy a rat snake, buy some stuff.
Yeah.
Or just come and talk to us, say hi. That's really it. And like I said,
Yeah.
thank you again for having me. And
Of course.
I'm on your podcast.
Yeah. All right, man. So yeah, everyone, thank you so much. Give it up for Alvaro a little bit. Thank you, man. I'm gonna throw you backstage, run the outro, and I'll come talk to you backstage right after we finish.
Perfect.
Thanks a lot, man.
Right.
Guys, tonight was awesome. I think we got some really informative stuff about hogs. I know I've listened to Alvaro on a few podcasts and even listening to his stuff, but I think I dug into some questions that I may have not heard before. So, or maybe I didn't pay attention well enough, but I definitely got some learning out of this. I hope you guys did too. As we mentioned at the beginning, Meteoric Serpents t-shirts, if anyone's interested, feel free to send me a message. Other than that, follow me on all my social media down below. Hit up Alvaro. Again, link in the description. Let's see, like he said, like, share, subscribe, do all that. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your night. Here's to episode 3 of the Colubrid Corruption podcast. Peace out. Have a good night, everyone.